Hello everyone, how are y'all doing today? I hope y'all are doing well today. I am doing well. Look, I'm sitting outside as you can see. The weather is so nice. And I got to thinking about religion. Not just religion, but institutionalized religion. The religion that has kept us in a box, that has controlled us when it comes to God. You see, this message is not for the faint of heart. It is for those of you who think differently, that don't conform or believe everything that you hear, that you question things. I was thinking about how, and it's not me per se, it was someone else that was telling this story, that the child was with his mother at church and the pastor said something and the child questioned it, and the mama told him, don't say nothing. And I thought to myself, when you do that, you're saying that the pastor or preacher or spiritual leader is always right, that they shouldn't be questioned. And another thing that is saying is that if you question something, that you shouldn't think for yourself. If somebody's telling you something and you disagree with it, you should question it. That would be the same thing if it was the pastor or whoever it is. But we just have been taught that if people are in certain positions that they know more. But let me just say this, they don't know more. They don't know more. They don't know God any more than you know God. They do not. Don't you know that everybody's going to experience God differently? And how you connect with God, it's going to be different for everyone. It's not going to be the same. It's just like everybody's life is not the same. That means that everybody's relationship with God is going to be different. And how you connect with God is going to be different. Society has taught us that in order to connect with God or have a relationship with God, you're supposed to go to church, right? And the pastor would tell you what you need to do, how you need to do it to have a relationship with God. But see, that's not how it works. Nobody can tell you about your relationship with God. You just experience it. You just experience God for yourself. In your life, you experience God. And it's going to be different from my experience with God. No pastor, spiritual leader can tell you this. Just because somebody can quote you a scripture and make it make sense to you, right? That does not mean that they know God, right? Just because they in a certain position, it does not mean that they know God. And if they do know God, it ain't gonna be, it won't be the way you know God. See, God is a source, and we all have access to that source. And some of us will connect to that source faster, sooner than others. Some may take a long time, and some not so long. It's like many streams going into one river, right? The river being the source. But we all different rivers, and we all gonna get there when we need to get there. Nobody can tell you that. You have to experience that. And if you're a pastor or a spiritual leader or preacher or whatever name you want to give it, if you're not telling people that they can find God for themselves, independent from them, then you're a hypocrite. But let me just say, the reason why pastors and spiritual leaders don't tell you that you should try to find God on your own, because if they do that, then you won't come to church. And if you don't come to church, then who are they going to talk to? If you don't go to church, they can get their money. And they're not going to tell you that you can have a personal relationship with God outside of church, because then you wouldn't go to church. And then they wouldn't get paid. And that's just what that is. But you might say, well, that's not fair. No, it's not fair. What's not fair is not telling the truth. That's the part that's not fair. I guarantee you, if you found a pastor and he had the choice to tell you the truth, that you don't need church or them to have a relationship with God, versus come to church and tithe and get and listen to me and I'll show you the way, they're going to take the latter, even if they know the truth. Because if they tell you the truth, then they won't profit. We're in a time now where it's time for the truth. And that's what that is. What I just told you is the truth. And if they're not going to tell you, then I will. It's like they've used church to keep people in fear. That if you don't go to church, if you don't praise the pastor, then you're going to go to hell. That's fear. Or if you do something that's unchristian-like, then that's a sin and you're going to go to hell. That they use fear to keep you controlled. Because if you think you're going to go to hell, right, then whatever it is they're telling you to do or not do, you ain't going to do it. Because you don't want to go to hell and you don't want to be eternally punished, because that's what we believe and that's what they made us believe, until you find out that it's not true. But if somebody that's supposed to be in a leadership position, a spiritual leader, is telling you that if you don't do things a certain way, then you're going to go to hell, then they're just a part of the problem. You don't tell people that because they don't do something a certain way that they're going to go to hell. First of all, nobody knows that hell exists. And when people are using that phrase, if you don't do something, you're going to go to hell, that's you as an individual. If you tell, say, a child that, you're a part of the problem, because you're only telling the child that to scare the child into submission. That's what these that's what these systems want. And then they want us to just keep it going. Not only are we conformed, or they want us conformed, they want our children conformed. They want the young people conformed. But it ain't gonna happen though. Because one thing I realized, these children, they question things. They do. They're more independent. They are more of an independent thinker. And what I mean by that is, just because the pastor says it, they don't make it true. Some of them question and not understanding God. They don't understand that God gonna show himself to you in your life. It just depends on your life. But you will always know God is there, and God will show himself to you. And as you go through your life, you'll start having this relationship with God. He'll start showing himself to you. Nobody can tell you that. God is an experience. And we all must experience him in our own way and in our own time. And no spiritual leader can tell you that, when that time is, and how God will show himself to you. I've said this to other people. You don't need to go to church to have a relationship with God. You always have what people don't understand is, and this is big, you don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. Because God is never separate from you. You always have access to God. It's just that we haven't been taught that. We've been taught that God is outside of us. But God's never been outside of us. God has always been within us. But these spiritual leaders have taught us that God is outside of us, and God gonna come from the sky, and God's gonna save us, and whatever other stories they come up with, that God gonna come back. But what happens when you realize that God never was outside of us? That God is within you, in every individual, in every living thing. God always has been. What happens when you realize, because people talk about this the second coming, like as though God gonna come back from the sky. No, he's not, because he never left from us. He is within us. See, and the person might tell you, like, yeah, God is within you, but he won't tell you the whole truth. He'll just tell you, yeah, God is within you, but you still need to come to church. You see what I'm saying? And you still need to tithe. Because at the end of the day, he gonna tell you a half truth, but he never gonna have it to where he don't benefit. And that's what that is. It's just time for us to wake up now. And I know some of y'all may disagree with me, and that's okay. Because the one thing about me, I'm just expressing myself, and this is based on my own opinions, of my own journey. But I didn't share this to change anyone's mind. But it is for, it's another perspective. It's a perspective to where things have gone the same way. We've been taught the same thing the same way. And it's not right. And it's time to know the truth. And sometimes when you've been conditioned, you don't know what the truth is. It looked like the truth, but it's not. And so I say all that to say, It's time for us to wake up. But thank y'all. I thank y'all for listening to me. And I hope this helps someone. Thank you. Bye bye.